So, welcome to today's webinar. We are looking at how to overcome your deepest fears and live a more rewarding life. I am not going to be streaming this on YouTube because somehow a large part of this webinar this night is going to be private. And when I say private, I mean at some point I'm going to be muting someone and I'm muting each person so that you can at least share what you have done with the worksheet that was given to you via the email so that you can share what you've been doing so far and so that we can easily identify exactly what fear you are currently battling with. And then we will do that in between that, and I'm glad that NEPA just gave us our own light right now. So we had started in the hope that whether NEPA brought light or not, it doesn't matter. This is Nigeria, so we'll continue to move on anyway. So welcome everyone, welcome. I'm glad to have you. In case I'm white out, I can correct that, I can balance that. So let me just do that. At this point, I want us to go ahead and introduce ourselves. So please, you can unmute yourself one after the other. Please introduce yourself. Tell us where you are tuning in from. Tell us what you do. Your name, where you're tuning in from. Let's start from the person that had name starts with A. So A goes first, then the way your names are arranged. So according to what I'm seeing Abimbola Chikere, Fisayo, Badje, Oluwatomisin, Jeremiah. So let's go one after the other, please. Let's do that right about now.
All right. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. I am Abimbola Oshubi, the speech rebrander. And I'm sorry, I forgot the other things I was meant to say.
What you do?
What I do? Okay, I work with
Your location.
entrepreneurs, professionals. Okay, I work with entrepreneurs, professionals, and everyone in the wordpreneur space to become more confident, fluent, and proficient with both spoken and written English. My location, I'm in Lagos.
Amazing. So next person, please. That should be
Hello, good evening. My name is Chikere Okora for public servant working in Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, Mina Airport. I'm in Niger State.
amazing. Good to have you. That's our naval engineer. So Fisaya, you're next, and then Jeremiah, you're next, and then Badje, you're next. So let's do that snappily. Okay, Jeremiah, let's go over to you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeremiah from Lagos. I'm a public servant. Um, finish.
Interesting. All right. Thank you for that. All right. Thank you for that. I believe everybody can still hear me right now. Can you still hear me? All right. So we move on to Badger. Thank you, Mr. Jeremiah. The way you spelled your name today is quite interesting because I have not seen you spell your name like this before. I always see Jeremiah like M-A-Y-A. So everybody are saying that my sound is clear and loud enough for them to hear. I'm wondering why one person is having challenges with hearing me. Anyway, let's move on to the next person. That should be Sylvester or Uluwatobi. And then we have Samson, we have Chinaza just joining in. And then we have iPhone. So just please tell us your name, where you're tuning in from, and what you do. That's basically what we are requesting right now. All right, can you please do that?
That's good.
Okay, Sylvester appears to have hung in the air. So let's have. Okay, Sylvester
Sorry.
again. All right.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go on.
I'm sorry, my network is a bit.
All right.
My name is Sylvester Obache. Um, I'm the admin manager of Dayo Samuel Research Multiversity, and we are glad to have everyone join us tonight. Hope we have a good
Thank
night
you.
together.
Thank you. The way your voice sound now, they will think that you have drank one something this now. But I understand that it's your network. All right. So Toby, let's have you. Lua Toby, that's his next
It's
O.
really ahead.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Oluwatobi Adesanya. I'm based in Lagos. I'm a writer and a publisher. Also, a certified journal therapy coach.
Amazing.
I guess that summarizes what I do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So Samson, let's have you, your name, what you do, and where you're tuned in from. So let's just have that while
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Samson from I'm an undergraduate at University of Benin. I study dentistry and dental surgery. Can you hear me, sir?
yes, I can.
Okay, I'm an undergraduate at University of Benin. I study dentistry and dental surgery. In addition to that, I work in the school as the SDG coordinator at SDSN Youth. I'm based in Benin since I school there right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. And who else wants to introduce yourself? If you don't want to, it's okay. Since we had already created a list before you came in, I think I should pick one person here or two persons here, Chinaza and Adela Ajayi. So Chinaza, Adela Ajayi, please introduce yourselves, so your name, what you do, and where you're tuned from.
You know, I had a feeling that you know my name.
Amazing.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Adiola Jai. I'm from Lagos. I currently stay in Lagos. So I'm coming from Lagos. I'm a business manager at a fintech company. Yeah, I guess that's
Amazing.
about.
That's great. So Chinaza, you're the next person. So let's have you. Thank you very much for that.
Hello, good evening. My name is Chinaza Sandra from Enugu, graduate of biology, salesperson, and accessories creator.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Tonight, we'll be diving right into how to overcome your deepest fears, anxieties, worries, and this class we may not be able to go into phobias because they are usually lumped together. Fears, phobias, anxieties, and worries, and live a more rewarding life. My name again is Dayo Samuel, and I'm glad to have you all here this evening. It's going to be a really, really amazing time. If you have not yet downloaded the worksheet, let me see if I can find the link to download the worksheet. Let me see if I can get you a link for the worksheet right about now so that you can actually download the worksheet so that we are using for this webinar. The way this webinar has been designed, it's been designed such that while you will do some tasks, especially as I've indicated in the worksheet, a lot of them, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions, and from those questions, you'll be able to find some answers to why you are feeling whatever it is you're feeling right now, and to be able to deal with the fear. I have personally handled a lot of fears in my life, and when I say a lot of fears in my life, I'm referring to the fact that when I was growing up, in fact, this is my book. This is a book. This is my book. I think maybe about two persons in this class have a copy of this book. And I remember in that book, I shared a story of mine where I was basically, when I was growing up, I used to like dancing. I used to like to play. I used to like to enjoy myself. The only problem was that the people that parented me, my dad and my mom, they got fed up of my dancing and my playing around in the house. And one day, my mom screamed at me and shouted, Will you stop that? And so back to back, back to back, back to back. That screaming of me stopping that and not playing and be a good boy, be calm, be gentle. That scream back to back like that. That got me to a point where I became introverted, where I became gentle, where I became quiet. Because, of course, I will explain that as we go on. It's called domestication. It's something that parents do to their children, and it makes that child conform to what their parents want them to be, how their parents want them to behave, who their parents want them to be. Unfortunately, that child can lose touch with who the real child is. It's called domestication. We'll talk about it as we go on. And so I became introverted. I could not dance in public. I could not talk in public. In fact, I could not even ask a girl out. It got to that point that I could not ask a girl out. I remember the first girl I asked out, I was 13 years old, and I was beside one truck. And before I could open my mouth to even say I wanted to be my girlfriend, oh boy, I spent like 30 minutes playing around the bush. So my friends started calling me the guy that beats around the bush. So anytime I say, I like that baby, they just say the guy that beats around the bush. But that kept on going on for years in my life. I could not get into any relationship. I could not, of course, I was still a teenager then. I could not get any girlfriend. Even when I became an adult, when I was 18 years old, I still could not even have any meaningful relationship with anyone because I was basically shy. I could not ask a girl out. I could not. In fact, the worst part of it is that I grew up playing musical instruments. So it now became a way for me to hide from public. So somehow I became the guy that functions in the background for a lot of people, for a lot of times. And that was how I functioned for many years of my life until one day I was in I think, if I remember clearly, it was, this time should be maybe around 2015, 2016. And interestingly, I got a call this night from somebody I had been in touch with for years. And we lost touch for years. And then this person called me tonight and we went back all the way to 2011, 12, 13, 14, even up to 2015. Now, the interesting thing is this. At that point in my life was when I decided it's time for me to change this particular way I've been living my life. And it was then I decided to begin to study how to help myself. The reason why I got into this primarily was because I wanted to help myself. Now, for my staff and some people who have attended some of our classes, they will understand that there was also a behavior I developed, an addiction I developed over the years that I was also battling with. So in order to solve that, I prayed, I fasted, I did all kind of things that God should take away fear, that God should heal me from that particular addiction. It went on for years, for years, for years, for years. No, nothing could happen. And then one day, as I began to study, particularly I began to study human behavior. I began to study neuroscience. I began to study psychology. I began to study transformation, began to study the art and science of creating change in someone's life. I read through dozens of books, went through a lot of programs, and one day I hit a certain point. It was at that point that I was able to come out of my own shell, understood exactly why I've always been having this fear for the past years of my life, and finally made a change, a very, very tiny change. In fact, in lasting transformation, for example, I think Chinaza may even remember, and Sylvester may even remember. In lasting transformation, there's something we call micro transformations. That is, transformations you make, tiny transformations you make, just as brushing your teeth. It could be as tiny as that, but it alters how you feel. It changes how of course, the clothes you wear. As tiny as that, they are very, very micro transformations. I began to carry out such micro transformations gradually, gradually, gradually. And over the years, it resulted in me creating huge changes in my life. And Mr. Jeremiah is here. You've been at Fair Resolve before. You probably have even heard some of my story. So there are a lot of things that I've had to do over the years creating micro transformations that eventually led to the lasting transformations that now I enjoy today. Someone, we were in a church today, and somebody threw my baby up, and my baby went into the air and was laughing, "Rrrr," and threw up the first time. The second time, before I threw her up the third time, he paused and looked at me and said, "Is it like your baby does not fear? Like, normally when I throw babies up like this, they usually fear." So I started laughing. He said, "Oh, you have done fear resolve for your child." Somehow, what has helped me over time, maybe is now seeping through and getting to my own child. But of course, if many parents are exposed to these things, they want to raise up children who get to have fears. So as we get into this conversation this night, I'm looking forward to you even discovering, without even moving a lot further with us, that you will be able to discover why you have been having fears all your life, and particularly the areas that you can work on this night, starting from this night, that will help you live a more rewarding life. And when I say living a more rewarding life, this is what I mean. If you want to make more money, you will need some power, some boldness, some courage in order to go after that money. If you want to get a woman to date you or get a guy to date you, apart from all the, there's a word we used to use to describe it, apart from all those micro strategy of getting the babe and doing all those things, there's some element of boldness, there's an element of courage that you need as well, because of course it's a future that you're looking for, and you cannot fully predict whether it's going to be a yes or a no. So there's a tendency for anxiety to creep up, because of course a lot of times anxiety usually has to do with something about the future, except if it's an anxiety disorder. If you are trying to build a business, there's a fear that what if this business does not succeed? What if this business succeeds so much and it brings a lot of chaos into my life? There's a lot of fear everywhere. In fact, talking about fear, let me start here by showing you something right here. So you see that a lot of people in their lives, they have fear in a lot of areas of their life. So this is something that I teach for some time, then I stopped teaching it. But I want to bring it to your attention today. When we talk about fear, sometimes fear does not show up as being jittery. Fear does not show up sometimes as being as running away from something. Fear shows up in different ways. It takes many forms for different people. For some people, it could show up as, I might need to get my pen here. I did not think I was going to need it, but it's appearing I might have to use my pen here. So fear may show up for someone as control. And when I say control, what does control mean? I need you to understand right here that when fear is showing up as control, what it means is that this person basically has control. This person basically is a control freak. This person wants to be in charge of everything at every time. And sometimes you find this showing up in offices where a boss, for example, there was a movie that I saw some days ago, a Nigerian movie. I think it should be Who's the Boss? In that movie, Funke Akindele, who happens to be the boss of this other lady, I don't even know her name, instead of allowing her to freely flow, because of the fear that the lady, this younger lady, will take over the industry, she is afraid. So she kept putting her under. Even when this lady went behind her to create a company, the company began to take over businesses, began to take over deals. The fear was still driving her because she wanted to maintain control. That may seem too far away. Let me bring it down to something you can easily relate with. So let's say you have a father or a mother who likes to constantly monitor you. It's coming from control and is powered by fear. There's also the part of fanaticism, and this is where religion usually plays out, and even sports. So you find that they are fanatic about something, fanatic about religion. They somehow suspend their mind or suspend their thinking power, because of course if they suspend their mind, they will need to go to psychiatry. So let me see it a better way. They suspend their reasoning and then they just dive fully in, and then they become fanatics. And by the way, a lot of people in church are basically just fanatics. They are fanatics of the particular practice of that, the way they practice their religion, not necessarily that they are fanatics of Jesus or fanatics of Christ. Do you get that? And then there's a part where I refer to as rigidity. Rigidity basically means that sometimes you are not easy, you are not flexible, you are not easy to convince, you are not the kind of person who's so let's say an idea comes up suddenly, the idea pops up, rather than you jumping in straight to go and explore the idea, rigidity will not allow you to go explore the idea. Why? Because you are busy thinking it has happened before, this is how we have always done things, this is how this is it. And so because of that, you are being rigid, you are not flexible. Also, fear also powers addictions. I don't know, you may be here this night and you may be dealing with one addiction in your life. I make bold to tell you that a lot of times addictions are usually held onto out of fear. The day I understood this, I was able to get myself freed from the addiction that I've battled with from when I was 13 years old. And in case you're wondering what's this addiction that Daya has been saying, is pornography and masturbation. I watched the first pornography in my father's house when I was 13 years old. I was just 13 years old and 6 weeks. That is, I just celebrated my birthday, so it was just 6 weeks after I celebrated my birthday that I saw my first pornography in my father's house. I was 13 years old. Do you get it now? And from that time, for another 13, 16 years of my life, I was addicted to masturbation and pornography. The day I found out that it is the fear of other people not discovering that this is what I am doing, that is why I am still holding on to it. That day, that addiction lost its power over my life. So you may be here, you might be addicted to something. It could be even smoking. It could be that you are addicted to a behavior that's not helping you achieve your goals. Fear could be letting you hold on to that addiction. And then fear also powers busy mind. And when I say busy mind, it means your mind is constantly busy. There's no time that your mind is at peace. There's no time that your mind is at rest. Your mind is just constantly busy, constantly thinking. It is basically fear. The same thing as worry and obsession. Worry is that you're thinking about what will happen. Obsession is that the thinking is now controlling you. And it's also powered by fear. Phobias and avoidance. So, for example, you don't eat certain types of food, you don't want to eat certain types of food, or you say that whenever you eat those food, you belch, or or something happens to you and all that. It is basically coming from the fear that you are holding on to. And a lot of us hold on to fear. In fact, one basic fundamental assumption in fear resolve is that every human being on the face of the earth has fear. From the celebrity you admire, to the pastor that preaches to you, to the imam that you look at, to even the footballer that is winning hundreds of matches, every single human being on the face of the earth has fear. So there's nobody who is fearless in the real sense of fear. But people can act fearless because they have learned to master that fear. All right? And then stress also. Whenever there's stress, you should understand that fear is present. That's one other principle of the fear resolve process that we usually talk about in class. That wherever fear is present, this is fear showing up. Now, if you understand what I've shared with you so far, please type that in the chat box. Let me know that you understand what I am sharing with you so far. Amazing, amazing. My phone says fear taking form of control. Amazing. Tables, glass tables. Fear busy, past busy. How about the fearless Esther here? That would be good. So your name is Esther. That's good. It's iPhone that I've been seeing before since. All right. So share with me something that has been interesting to you right now since we started so far, especially with that part that I've just shared just now. And while you're doing that, let me move on to still talking about the fear that we just talked about. So I already said that fear can take many forms, right? These are some other forms that fear take. Fear takes the form of anxiety, the form of timidity, and anxiety here could be that you are constantly worried about what's going to happen in the future. Abimbola says, I finally got to learn what fear isn't all about. What I thought it would be. Interesting. I never knew addiction was a form of fear. Amazing. Okay, fear and fanaticism, I find that quite interesting. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. There are a lot of things that you will even discover about fear. Because let me make a disclaimer here. Before I could put together what we call the fear resolve process, I went through a lot of programs trying to understand what every other person, well, a lot of programs, not all programs. I went through a lot of programs and I found that majority of the programs we have here in Nigeria, and some programs, well, I did not go through anyone apart from Nigeria, but I went through a lot from US and UK. I found that many of them simply see fear as lack of motivation, as lack of not wanting to go after something, and then maybe you're held back. But you know the interesting thing? Because I also understand that what I am afraid of is different from what Toby is afraid of. It's different from what Juliet is afraid of. It's different from what Chikere is afraid of. It's different from what Jeremiah is afraid of. It's different from what Sandra is afraid of. Every single person have their own dimension of fear. No single solution works for every single person. So I found that, for example, there's even a conference called Do It Afraid Conference. I found that what they simply do is just to tell you story and provide inspiration. And inspiration has its place when you want to overcome fear. But you know the interesting thing? When you are facing a dog, can you do it afraid? What will you be doing afraid when you are facing a dog? Can you type that in the chat box right now? What will you be doing afraid? Let's say a dog is barking at you right now and you have been told to do it afraid. What will you do afraid? So I found that there are a lot of paradigm that are constantly being told that in the real sense of the word, he said, run it through his hand. That's what you do afraid. Amazing. And if the dog is a type that we have in our own compound, the dog will run after you, knowing that you're throwing something at at that point, what will you do afraid? You continue to scream. Only Mugbe. So you see, sometimes when you say you should do it afraid, you do it afraid. In the real sense, it's okay, but somehow it cannot help you handle that particular fear that you are facing. So again, fear takes many forms. Timidity is also a form of fear. Superstition, that is when somebody is being superstitious, it's also a form of fear. Loneliness, not wanting to mix with people, is a form of fear. You probably are afraid of what will happen to you if you leave your cage. Worry, control, cowardice, hesitancy, doubts, indecision, not making up your mind is a form of fear as well. Procrastination is a form of fear. And I'm glad that I'm talking about procrastination right now because I recently created a material, a product on procrastination called Ready, Set, Go, the anti-procrastination plan that helps you take immediate action, that makes taking immediate action easy. And for the people that have been taking it, they've been giving me amazing feedback because I came from the point of understanding that fear also powers procrastination. Sometimes, and it's the reason why I always tell people, even research has begun to show that procrastination is not a problem of time management. It is basically how you feel when you need to do that thing. So when you're procrastinating, there's a feeling you are feeling. And if you are not in touch with that feeling, you will not be able to overcome that procrastination. Another form that fear takes is withdrawal. You withdraw from people, you withdraw from something. I've talked about addiction, anger, rage, and over-aggression. They are also forms of fear. Let me explain that to you scientifically. When you are afraid, there are basically about four actually, neurochemicals that are going on. Let me not talk about neurochemical, let me simplify it. There are about 3 states that you can get into when you are afraid, or 4 of them. First one is to fight. Second one is to flee. Third is to freeze. Now, fight means that you fight back, which is what powers anger. That's the reason why anytime somebody is angry, it usually comes from a place of they are afraid of something and then they are responding to that thing they are afraid of. Rage over aggression is coming from that flight response or that fight response of fear. Complexes, inferiority and superiority complexes, they are all powered by fear. Suspicion, Whether you are suspecting your wife or you are suspecting your husband, it's all coming from a place of fear. Depression, particularly when it's not clinical depression, because a lot of times people say depression, and I found that sometimes depression could be that somebody just needs money to solve their depression. As a therapist, I've seen that one happen severally. That this person will say that they are depressed, so I coach them and help them find new ways to make money. And then the depression is almost gone instantly because they just had clarity. Social shyness, social anxiety, they are all powered by fears. All right? The fear of meeting people. Amazing, 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 amazing. Now, having talked about that, I need you to understand something here. Awareness is power. Awareness is power. When fear is outside of our awareness, it grows stronger and influences areas of our lives and personality. In extreme cases, fear actually takes us over entirely. When you are not paying attention to how fear is trying to control you, how fear is trying to make you behave, it actually grows stronger. My belief is that many of you that are here today, fear has probably directed your life in some ways in the past, and you've not had the power of awareness to be able to lead that fear, to be able to guide that fear, to be able to direct that fear. And maybe in some cases, it has actually taken you over such that the fear was very, very overwhelming for you. Here's what I want you to understand. And this is what I always teach in class. You can never overcome fear by motivation. And I'm going to say that, and I want you to write that down if you can. You can never overcome fear through motivation. No matter what you do, you can never ever overcome fear through motivation. So even if you watch a lot of motivational videos, you go through a lot of motivational talks, listen to a lot of inspirational stories, that will not help you to overcome fear. You know what that will help you to do? It will only provide temporary boost to your feeling, to your emotion, and make you take action a bit. But you know the interesting thing? When the fear comes back, it is awareness that's going to help you overcome that fear. So I always say it this way: you cannot overcome fear through motivation, but you can overcome fear via illumination, awareness. Do you get that? You cannot overcome fear through motivation, but you can overcome fear via illumination. And when I say illumination, this is what I want you to understand. Joseph Campbell said that the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And I always like to use that as a metaphor to help people understand that when you want to overcome fear, it's just as though there is a cave. That cave has a treasure you're looking for. It is inside that cave that you can find that treasure you're looking for. But you know the interesting thing? That cave is dark. So in order for you to walk through that cave, you need light. So if you're trying to say you don't have any light, you don't have any illumination, you don't have any light at all, but that cave is dark, and you walk through that cave, what happens? You basically try to figure your way. So you'll be touching everywhere. You'll be touching the wall, touching this, touching that, and even be screening your eyes. And if you have eyes like myself that can see in the dark, my eyes see clearly in the dark, you might be able to see when you want to step on something, when you want to stand on something and all that. But you know the interesting thing? The moment you have, even if it is just the touch that is at the back of your phone, and you turn it on, you won't need to suffer that much in order to find where you are going to, in order to get to that treasure that is inside that cave. Am I correct? Now, I want you to imagine here. And I want to use an example that I usually use. David said that even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Remember that Joseph Campbell said that the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And David said that even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I have an option. I will not be afraid. How? The same David said that your word is a light unto my path and a lamp unto my feet. You know what that means? Let me explain to you so that you understand. Light unto your path means that you are going somewhere and that light is already at that point. So you want to go to where that light is. Now, a lamp onto your feet means that in order for you to take steps, you are simply turning it on and you are saying, do I need to avoid this spot? Is there a pothole here? Or maybe the way I used to explain it to people. Is there soldier ant on the floor that I need to avoid? How do I know? The lamp that is at my feet, which is the word. So when David was saying that even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, his own cave that holds the treasure that he's seeking, what was he having? He was having the word, the light, illumination. So again, I'm going to repeat to you that you can never overcome fear through motivation. The most effective and most powerful way to overcome fear is illumination. You cannot overcome fear through motivation. The most effective and most powerful way to overcome fear is illumination. You need sufficient awareness. You need awareness. Awareness is power. Whenever you want to overcome fear, you don't need to look for motivation, so to say. What you simply need to look for is illumination. How can I turn on a light such that this darkness can be dispelled? If you have light, you won't have to struggle with darkness. Am I correct? So you just need to find that light and turn it on. And it's the reason why when we have the fear resolve process, we spend a lot of time opening up, turning on the light, showing people exactly how they brought on fear, exactly how the fear works, and even the internal reactions they have towards the fear, so that they can actually manage their physical behaviors towards fear. And I'm looking at, hoping that, praying that this night you are going to encounter one of such insights, one of such lights this night. So somebody say amen. Let me do it like a pastor. Say amen. So somebody say amen. All right, all right, all right. I hope you're having a good time right now. I hope you're enjoying this session. Now, in order to overcome fear, there's something we teach called the fear transformation sequence. Dan says amen. You can say amen. Everybody says amen. Hallelujah, somebody. All right. So there's something we teach at the DSRM, that's Dayo Samuel Research University. There's something we teach we call the fear transformation sequence. And what it means is basically that when you want to transform fear from fearful to courage, confidence, to more power, what do you need to do? You simply need to focus on just 5 things: the scenarios, the scripts, the stories, the states, and the strategies. Now, I know your mind will be wondering, what does this mean? Let me explain it to you. So, scenarios are basically events and situations in our lives. Scripts are basically our values, our beliefs, and our memories. Because a lot of times, when we are going through something, we are keeping a memory, we are storing values, we are storing beliefs from every incident in our lives. And remember, so let me give you a little example right here. So let's say there's a lady that got raped. From that rape incident, that trauma, she will create a value. She will create a belief. Our brain, by nature, will create a memory. And anytime she recalls that memory, that belief, that value gets reinforced in her mind. In fact, the way we say it in neuroscience is that the more you recall a value, the more you recall a belief, the more you recall a memory, you are strengthening the muscle, the neuron that powers the hypothalamus, hippocampus, and the amygdala. The neurons that connect them together, because amygdala is where emotions are stored. Hippocampus memories are stored. What's the other one that I mentioned just now? The hypothalamus is what captures, what's the name? Captures insights. It captures, that's insight. It captures, is like what you see, what you hear, particularly what you see. It takes it in, sends it to the amygdala, sends it through the hippocampus. So the 2 of them are constantly working together. So when that trauma takes place, what happens is that anytime the lady recalls that incident, remembers that story, she's probably reinforcing the value, the belief that she developed after that thing happened. Do you get it now? So a lot of times, so for example, let me give you a little example. So some years ago, a girlfriend of mine who I was going to get married to told someone actually, then the chat now leaked to me, told somebody that I can't marry him. He's a broadcast pastor. For years. That statement, broadcast pastor, haunted me for years. And when I say haunted me, I mean I would try to do something and I'll remember that this lady called you a broadcast pastor. Now, I'm not reinforcing that I'm a broadcast pastor. Only that anytime I remember it, what am I reinforcing? I'm alternatively reinforcing the fact that I am a broadcast pastor, or I was a broadcast pastor, because then I was broke. Truly, I was actually broke truly then. Do you get that? So now imagine this person that had this trauma of being raped, and anytime she recalls that memory, she's reinforcing that. So that's a script. It gets into our system, and we have the power to change it. Now, the third part is stories. Stories are basically the narratives we share with ourselves or with other people. So it's a story that you constantly tell yourself. So notice what I just said now. I said I had an ex-girlfriend who called me a broadcast pastor. That's a story, an external story that I'm telling you. While you are telling that story, you can also internalize that story such that that story now creates its own paradigm, such that anytime you even want to move towards money, it can pull you back. That, well, somebody has even called you a broadcast pastor, or maybe a landlord told you that his daughter said that, what if you are not able to pay for the rent in 1 year time? And so that now becomes something that makes you to now start pushing yourself, because you don't want to fall, you don't want to conform to that thing that has been said. It's a story. Then there's the states. States basically is how you feel internally and externally. And then there's strategy. What we call strategies. Strategies basically is how we behave and our actions. And a lot of times we always remind people and tell people that you are not your behavior. No matter what you do, you are not your behavior. Your behavior is basically how you are acting out. It's not necessarily who you are. Okay? Now, having mentioned those, and I hope that this session is bringing a lot of value to you. Let me share with you some of the things that we'll cover. We'll talk about 7 common fears. We've talked about a lot of things, but we are about to dive into some really, really deep parts right now. We'll talk about your life journey. We'll also look at 7 ways you are card fear, the root cause of fear, pain, and disease, the chemicals of confidence. Now, I shared this story via email with you. If you got this story via email, please type yes in the chat box right now. Let me know that you got this story via email. If you got this story, I shared this story via email, and I remember typing it out and telling, okay, somebody says yes. If you got it via email, let me know. How come it's only one person that got the email? That's quite interesting, fascinating to see. Oh, Dan, you said no. Interesting. So you probably signed up late such that the email did not have time to deliver to you. But all right, you probably get it after now. But I'm glad that, okay, Sylvester got it. Great. So in that email, I remember sharing this story here of, this was me. And by the way, in case you are wondering, how long ago is this time? This time here, should I tell you? If you want me to tell you, let me know that I should tell you. This one is basically 2000, and I think this should be 2019. This should be 2019 or 2020. If I'm correct, this should be 2019 or 2020. And by the way, the space between these two is not up to the transformation is 7 up. The difference is clear. And by the way, it's not up to 10 years, by the way. The difference between these two pictures is not up to 10 years. Chikere, I'm not going to tell you. I've only given you an hint. The difference between these two dates is not up to 10 years. So that means that it's even less than 2019 when I snapped this picture, because I remember I was basically in 300 level when I snapped this picture. And I snapped this picture right here inside Lagos, Nigeria. In fact, I snapped it in Ojodu in Lagos, Nigeria. When I snapped this picture, where was I living when I snapped this new one? This now. Where was I living? I was living, I think, either I was living in yes, I remember. But the difference between them is not up to 10 years. But you know the interesting thing? You aged backwards. Actually, in one class, somebody told me that this before I looked older. In this now, I looked younger. So you see, but this time of my life, this period here, where is it again? This period of my life here, this time here, this was that time that I had a lot of fears. Even to snap picture those days, I used to have a lot of fears because partly there was a time of my life that I used to feel like when I snap picture and somebody gets hold of it, they can use it to go and do one ritual. So there have been all those things in my life. Anyway, now let's talk about 7 common fears, phobias, and anxieties that we often experience. Some of you are laughing at me. It's okay if you look at your own 10-year difference picture. That's 10 years, so you will know that God is good all the time. So let's look at 7 common fears, phobias, and anxieties that we usually experience, that we usually have, or that most people have. The first of them is what I refer to as performance anxiety. You most likely would not find this anywhere because one day it just came and I just defined it as performance anxiety. And what does it mean? It basically means that the fear that you get when you are in a spotlight. The spotlight does not necessarily mean when you're on stage. So for example, public speaking is a performance activity. Asking somebody out is a performance activity. Making a presentation is a performance activity. There are a lot of activities that we do that put you in the spotlight, that kind of puts the focus on you for that moment. That is what I call being in the spotlight. And anytime you're having fears around that, is basically a performance anxiety. Now, what does performance anxiety, how does it start? So for example, I explained there that so let's say public speaking, sharing your ideas. So I've clicked on something here. I don't know what I clicked, but the thing is misbehaving here. So hopefully, so maybe I'm going to be able to solve that with time, but I don't know what I clicked just now. So public speaking, sharing your ideas in a meeting deadlines. That is, you have been given a project that you need to execute on, and that project is creating a lot of worry, a lot of fear for you, that in case you don't succeed, in case you don't do well, in case you don't, all of that is just basically performance anxiety. And what causes it? There are 3 causes that I found so far. Number 1 is childhood trauma of performing. So perhaps you were like myself. If you remember the story that I shared at the beginning, when I was growing up, I used to like to dance. I used to like to sing. In fact, I used to dress like Michael Jackson and dance like Michael Jackson. I also used to dance a lot to Sonia Ade and Ebenezer Obey. But you know what happened? Because they killed that performance in me, today I'm not so much of a dancer, even though I still do a lot of music. But I'm not so much of a dancer today because there was a childhood trauma of performing. Today, I'm able to process it and talk about it and even share it well right now and have no negative emotion around it because I've been able to heal from that. Today, I can choose on my own to dance. I actually dance in the house. I dance even in public today, but not as exuberant as some other people do. And there's also the deep-seated beliefs that people have around performance. That is, maybe if you talk, they will say that you don't know how to talk. Like I've had in my own life. When I podcasting back in 2014, I first recorded my first episode in 2013, actually. I recorded it first in 2012. I had gotten to know about podcasts in 2012, and I recorded my first episode around that February, March, April, May 2012 was when I recorded my first podcast episode. I could not release it to public until I had to sit down and re-record with somebody who was speaking fluent English in 2014. That was when I was able to finally release the podcast after 6 months of recording, because I remember we recorded around the close of the year in 2013, and I released the podcast June 2014, which makes me one of the first. We were basically two people who were doing professional podcasts in the entire nation, in the entire Nigeria at that point. Other people were just doing well, because they were calling it podcast, so everybody accepted it as podcast, but it was basically just carrying something to record and then just asking people to buy it, and some people will now put it online. That was what they were doing. So it was basically not podcast, it was not free content. So, but I had a deep-seated belief then that was limiting me from performing, and that belief was that I don't sound well, I don't know how to talk well, I can't hold people for long, I can't engage people for long. These were beliefs that I was battling with then. And of course, anytime you are battling or you are processing any belief like that, you most likely be creating a mental image. And you know what mental image does? Somehow your mental image plays out in real life because you have played it in your mind. And so when it was time for you to act that way, your mind will just suggest it to you. It's called auto-suggestion. So there's a concept called auto-suggestion. It means your mind will just suggest something to you and you will just naturally follow suit. So a lot of times, mental images can create performance anxiety for you. If you understand what I've said so far, please type yes, let me know that you are getting me. Type yes, let me know that you're getting me right now. Amazing. At this point, this is where you now take your own workbook and answer the questions that, if you have not answered it so far, please do well to answer these questions. This is where we'll be needing that workbook, because we'll be answering questions from the workbook in some minutes time, and that's the reason why it was sent to you anyway. So I want you to answer right now, what are you actually afraid of? And I want you to list the fears that come straight to your mind. So list the fears that come straight to your mind. What are you afraid of? List them right now. If you can, pick a note and a pen, since you are already using your device and you may not be able to type on your device right now. I want you to type, what are you afraid of? And you don't, if you want to share with us in the chat, it's okay to do that, but you can also write it down somewhere where it's private so that you can also keep that for yourself. All right? So write that down, write that down, write that down, write that down. All right? Now, next, I want to show you this image, and I'm bringing up this image on purpose. Main reason is because this is what I want you to see here. In the Fear Resolve classes that we usually hold, a lot of times, because it used to be physical class, we used to have Fear Resolve as physical classes. We've had it for, I think we did 2 years online. Then for 3 years or so, we've had it as offline classes. We've been doing Fear Resolve classes. In Fear Resolve, one of the things we get people to do is we get them to perform for short minutes. So we bring them to the front of the class, and then we ask them to dance. People who are shy, people who are timid, people who are anxious, people who have performance anxiety. So before class, we usually have something called assessments. The assessments help us to identify exactly what fears people have, and we now kind of now design the program around the fears people have. So a lot of times, Fear Resolve is very, very customized to the number of students we have in class per time. Now, in the classes, we usually ask people to come out to dance as a way for them to break through their performance anxiety. And we get them to do a lot of activities as well as part of that breaking performance anxiety. In fact, at some point, we get them to close their eyes. So we get them to close their eyes. We use scarf like this. We use it to cover their eyes. And then they carry out certain activities. While they are doing that, as a way for them to get past the fear that they are having. You know why? Because sometimes your eyes can actually trick you to believe that your fear is very, very powerful. So we blind them. And interestingly, this person is inside class this night. Toby is inside class this night. The person here that is currently being blindfolded with this blue, this guy is in class right now. Wait, where's Toby? Let me see. Am I correct? He's in class now. He was in class some minutes ago. He introduced himself some minutes ago. He's not here right now. Hopefully, he's going to join back in. So we usually have, and sometimes in class too, people get to cry. We've had classes where people cry. If I'm correct, Jeremiah was in this particular class. This particular class where we snapped this one. We had this in Allen in Ikeja, I remember. And this person isn't down here. This is Dr. Lide. This is Milton Tutu. Anyway, in that class, the same Dr. Lide, imagine the same Dr. Lide is sitting down here. This one that my mouse is on right now. If you can see my mouse, the person that this mouse is on right now, he sent this testimonial in and he said, today I had a presentation with the staff of Promasidor Nigeria, owners and manufacturers of cowbell milk. I usually have fears in doing such large-scale presentations. Thanks to the fair resolve process techniques, I killed the presentation as I spoke and presented with clarity and confidence, and the management are already telling us to get ready for site inspections to seal huge acres of land. Now, let me tell you about this guy. Just last week, that is this week that just ended, or I think, was it previous week? This week or last week, this guy got a brand new car from the company he works with. You know why they gave him the car? Because he is one of the top, he's one of the top agents that they have. And this was the same person who before then could not make presentations, could not pitch business, could not talk about business in front of people because he was constantly afraid. And not to go into too much detail, if you have been having fears in your life, be sure that there's no fear that you've had that is beyond being healed, beyond being overcome. Now, this is the second fear that I'm going to talk about today, which is the fear of not being worthy or not good enough. This usually shows up when you are comparing yourself and judging your worth. This usually shows up it shows up sometimes as a low self-esteem, as a lack of courage, and lack of self-love. It could also show up when you are fearful of expression. You don't want to express yourself. You know what they call being authentic. You are not being authentic. And this fear can make you shut down opportunities. It can make you to not want to authentically succeed. So you may want to pretend to be someone else, or pretend to be someone you are not, in order to fit in order to be accepted by other people. There's also another fear that I call the fear of abandonment or separation, which a lot of people get to experience. In fact, this fear usually affects people in relationships because they are constantly feeling like they will be left in their relationships. And it's oftentimes created by the fact that they've had maybe multiple relationships where they were left. That is, the person they were in a relationship with broke up with them. And so that began to create a pattern that makes them to feel like no relationship is going to last. And for some people who try to say that they are being, I'm going to now contextualize this now, that they are being feminist. The moment they notice that the guy is acting a particular way, they quit the relationship in order to avoid being left. That is, they don't want the guy to break up with them, so they will break up with the guy. Why? Because they've had this pattern of abandonment or separation, and they are battling that fear, but they don't want to acknowledge that fear. They don't want to deal with that fear. And so you find that sometimes they are the ones who leave. This also shows up in marriage, not only in relationships. So you find that a woman can say that, I'm done with this marriage, and then she walks out. And then, as a therapist, I've had to see this play out in people's lives. They've had relationships, they've had friendships where they quit. They've had relationships where other people were leaving them, and so in order to develop superpower, they now take up the responsibility of constantly leaving people in their own relationship. So rather than they being left, they are the ones now leaving other people, and they do this to prove that they are smart. But in actual fact, it's because they don't want to face the fear that is hiding deep in their heart. Then there's the fear of animals, of course. The fear of dogs, the fear of cats, the fear of spiders, the fear of rats, the fear of snakes. If you've maybe you've not heard my story before. I used to fear rats, I used to fear dogs, I used to fear cats, spiders, rats, snakes. And particularly, I remember there was a day that my mom sent me to go and cut cane. I don't used to be afraid of, I was not fearful of snakes before a time in my life. There was one day my mom we had how should I explain it now? How should I explain it? I don't want to tell you the too much detail for this story because you will laugh at me. So I don't want you to laugh at me. China as a flying cockroach is even the bigger terrorist. So you see, that's fear of animal. But you know the interesting thing? It is not the animal itself, any animal you're afraid of, the animal is not the problem. What is the real problem is that you are creating a picture in your mind. You are creating a story. Remember I said that every fear follows almost the same sequence. There's a scenario, there's a story, there's a script, which is belief, then there's a story, and then we get into a state, which is the state of fear. So what if you can alter what has come before you get into that state of fear, and then the strategy becomes how you act out. All right. Anytime you see an animal that you're afraid of, you need to understand that that animal itself is not what's creating the fear. What's creating the fear is the story or the script that has been sold to you over time that you have adopted, believed, and you have accepted. Let me explain. I was talking about my younger sister just now. Well, I think that should be the second to the last born in my family. One day she was in our veranda and she was just sitting down, and then somehow over the top of her head, that time we had not even roofed our house, there was a snake. And somehow, me, I didn't even know that there's a snake there. Somehow my mom ran out from the house, saw the snake, ran out, and then eventually killed the snake. But you know what happened? From that day, I learned that I need to be afraid of snakes. So one day, this was many years after, my mom, as a teacher in our own school, because she used to own a school, she used to be a teacher, then she now owned a school. Now, when my mom sent me to go and cut cane for her so that she can use it to terrify some children, I went to go and cut cane. And when I was going to cut the cane, I needed to climb fence and enter the estate in the front of her house. As I raised my head as I climbed the fence, raised my head, I met a cobra that did like this. And the cobra was just looking at me. He not even tried to attack. The cobra just, of course, it was a sunny day. So it was later on that because I had to go and learn that why would a cobra come out in the afternoon. And I said it's because of sun, that he was coming to warm up himself. And I said, oh, really? It was later that I knew this. But that day, the cobra was just staying there on one leaf like that. So as I climbed the fence, as I saw the cobra, the next thing I knew was that I was on the second street, like 2 streets to our house. So there's a next street and there's a second street. I just knew that with this minute, I was on the second street. So they had to come and look for me on that street because somebody saw me running and I was screaming, "Oh, well!" So I screamed, I ran through another place and then found myself on 2 streets away from our house. My mom had to come and bring me back to the house. I know the funny thing that day, while I was running away, when I was trying to now calm down, I think I stepped on a snake, or maybe a snake passed me by. That created bigger problem. I could not sleep because, of course, I had learned when I was small that I need to be afraid of snakes. So when you're afraid of an animal, it's not the animal itself is not wild. The animal is not even the one that is creating the fear. It's basically something that you have stored in your mind that is making you to imagine what the animal would do to you. So a lot of times you find that this is the secret behind most fears. You are the ones that are creating the script, you are the ones that are creating the stories, and we are the ones that are playing the drama in our own heads. Are you getting what I'm explaining here? Okay, so I'm seeing comments here. Chikere said my sister personified. I mean, Bola says I can't forget the day I stepped on a snake. For weeks, I was afraid of passing that route. So I just realized that I fear snakes. Imagine me that thinking I didn't have fear for any animal. Interesting, you see? You just remember that you have that now, and somehow it could have been buried somewhere unconscious and you don't know. There's also the fear of heights, fear of flying or accidents, often caused by previous negative experiences. So, let's say you've been hit by a car before, and then a car is coming beside you, you will be triggered. You will remember that you've had that incident before. And so this one is usually coming from a previous experience that you had. Same thing with falling from heights. A child does not naturally fear heights until maybe they hear somebody tell them, they scream at them, and get them to snap, or they fall off and then they now story that when I fell in love that time, this was what happened to me. Next time I'm not going to try it. And so that child quickly learns not to climb such heights anymore. And by the way, could that fear of heights could it be creating fear of success for people such that they are afraid to climb certain heights in life simply because they've been pulled down before? There's also the fear of confinement. And this one, if you go to a church, for example, and you notice that a lot of times you don't like to be in the middle of the service, you like to sit at the edge of chairs. This is a you with the fear of confinement. And it's coming from a place of not being able to escape from a closed or small space. It's also coming from a desperate urge to escape. You are constantly on the edge. You don't want to be caught unawares. So if anything happens, you can quickly escape. And it also shows up as avoiding crowds. So you don't want to gather in a place where you are in the middle of the crowd. Instead, you like to be at the edge, somewhere where you can easily find your way out. It could also show up as sitting by the door. It could also show up as avoiding being stuck in traffic or waiting in queue. So you find that they are queuing to collect NIN. You are triggered. You don't want to stay there. You don't like to stay there. So you can even bribe and pay your way through to just avoid that. It's just coming from the fear of confinement. And a lot of times, people who have this fear of confinement, they value a sense of freedom a lot. They value the sense of freedom a lot. There's a certain one called fear of intimacy, which is usually not being able to be vulnerable with other people or to trust other people, feeling you'll be rejected when you make a proposition, powered by, or it results in jealousy, anger, and insecurity, and sometimes, a lot of times, leads to emotional attachment. And when I say emotional attachment, what that means is that a lot of times it just makes you to be emotionally attached to something. So you get into a relationship and then you develop something I called validation seeking behavior, VSB. So you get into a relationship and you are constantly seeking validation from the person you're in a relationship with. It's originally caused by fear of intimacy. And validation seeking behavior could also show up in other relationships that's not even intimate relationships. It could be that you do something and then you are looking to your boss for your boss to appreciate what you did, or for your boss to tell you well done, and the well done never came, and you're angry. It's emotional attachment coming from fear of intimacy. All right? So let's talk about your life journey. And this is the part that makes it more interesting. Everything I've discussed so far, this is where you'll be able to put everything together. So you'll find that when we talk about your life journey, we are coming from a place where I want you to understand that this present you that you have, the person that you are right now, this is who you are right now. And this is what people know about you. Everybody has a past, and everybody has a future. Now, this past you here, this is the past you, this is your personal history, your story, things you know about yourself. A lot of times, a lot of people don't know plenty things about your personal story. They don't even know a lot of things about you. They only know the present you. And then there's what I call depending you. Depending you is the person you are evolving into. This is the person you are trying to become. You are trying to become a more courageous person. You're trying to become a more confident person. You're trying to become a person who lives life to the fullest. You're trying to become the person who enjoys life to the max. Do you get that? Now, the interesting thing is that with this present you, there are two parts to this present you. And this present you makes up, or there is a private you, and there's the public you. This private you in this present you is that part of you that nobody knows anything about. This part is so private that you are the only person who knows everything about this private you. But you know this public you, this is the part that we see on your status. This is the part that you show people. This is the part you share with people. This is the part you tell them. This is the part you want them to know about you. This private you, this could be the part of you that has fears, phobias, anxieties. But you can shield it away from the public and only let people relate with the public you. Because of what? It's all dependent on you. It's only your strategy. Are you getting me now? Now, here's another thing I want you to understand about this life journey. All the fears you have came from this past you still. There's no fear that you have right now that is coming from this present you. All your fears that you have, you acquired them from this past you. They are coming from the storage. It's just like the hard drive has been corrupted with a virus called fear. In class in Fear Resolve, we talk about a virus called fear, how it is introduced into somebody's system. Maybe we'll even talk about some of them tonight so that you can understand that. Remember, I'm letting you understand that the most important way to understand fear is not motivation, because we can get into this class and I'll tell you 25 steps to overcome fear. And tomorrow, you will have forgotten 26 steps because you were trying to find the one that will work for you. So it is the most important way to overcome fear is illumination, not motivation. All right? Now, this pending you. This is that part of you that needs courage to move forward, because of course, courage is moving forward in spite of the fear. But you know what you need in the present? It is confidence. So you need to be able to build your confidence. And when I talk about confidence, there are 3 layers to this thing called confidence. There is what we call self. There's what we call social. And there's what we call skill. In the Fear Resolve process that I'm going to be talking to you about in some minutes time, I'm going to explain how to actually tap into all of this. And for some people, you can actually find videos about this on my channel. So there's confidence, we call self-confidence, social confidence, skills confidence. Self-confidence is about you. Social confidence is about other people. Skills confidence is about your abilities. And you need it in the present moment to be able to move forward. Because as you move forward, moving forward, you're able to become the person that you are looking to become. Remember that the goal of this webinar is what? How to overcome your deepest fears and live a more rewarding life. So this is that rewarding life here. In order to go to that rewarding life, you need to develop sufficient confidence and move forward with courage. Fear here has been acquired in the past. So you need to handle that fear. Now, the interesting thing is that the gap between the present you and this pending you, that's the gap that anxiety usually occupies. And so in my book and in classes, we usually define anxiety as the gap between your present you and the pending you. It is that gap that you are not aware of, you are not sure of. It is that future that you cannot completely dictate, you cannot completely have control over. That's that part that creates anxiety for people. It's that part that you don't have all the information, you don't have all the data, you don't have all the necessary details you need to make decisions going forward. And so it creates anxiety for you. If you are getting anything from this session tonight, please type in the chat box, let me know. So we said something in class, and this is a quote that I want you to write down. In fact, if you can, I want you to take a screenshot and put it up on your status, share it everywhere that you want to share it. And it is that, based on what I've shared with you so far, your past needs healing from you, your present needs ownership from you, and your future needs acceptance from you. Let me explain that to you, because somebody may ask you that, what does that mean when you share it? This is what it means. Remember that there's a past you, which is where your personal history, your story is. And then there's a present you, which is what people know about you. And then there's a pending you, who you are evolving into. This pending you is where courage is needed. You need courage to approach, to go forward. You need confidence in order to enjoy and live a more rewarding life in this present. And you need to deal with the fear that has been acquired in the past. All right? So you need, in the past, you simply need to heal all the fear that you've acquired. In the present, you simply need to own this present. And the future, because anxiety is there, you simply need to accept it so that you can move forward. I hope that somebody is getting some powerful lessons from these sessions. from this session because it's just one. Actually, I'm saying sessions because there's going to be another webinar. Another webinar is going to come up. All right. iPhone says anxiety is the gap between the present you and the future you. That's correct. Adela says enjoying the lessons. She creates a really entry. Thank you for that. So I need you to understand this very, very well. If you can understand this, remember again that I said that if you want to overcome fear, and you might have to write this down again. If you want to overcome fear, you need to understand fear. If you want to overcome fear, in my own mind, overcoming means you come over something. So you stand over something. So I use the illustration of table and chair anytime I'm talking about overcoming fear. You want to overcome fear, you know what you need to do? You simply need to first of all come under that fear. So you need to stand under that fear. Understand everything that powers that fear. All the pillars is like shaking table. You understand the table very well so that you can shake that table. And so when you shake that table, you can now stand on that table knowing that, yes, everything that this table, that's under this table, I know, understand it. And I can control it. Do you understand that? So if you have fear in any area of your life, you need understanding. And I've tried this night to provide this understanding to you with the hope that you'll be able to utilize some of the things that I've shared here. I know I did not tell you 25 steps to something because, again, by the time we are done with this class, you would have forgotten 26 steps. Because I will have shared with you 25 steps and you'll be writing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By the time you get to 24, you will have tomorrow we'll be remembering all the steps that you need to. So I just turned off something on my laptop. Hopefully that one is going to help the sound be louder. So let's move forward from here. I hope this is getting clear to you. So again, you can take a screenshot. You can post this on your status. You can share everywhere you want to share. But please tag me. My handle is I am Dayo Samuel. Everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. My handle everywhere is I am Dayo Samuel. All right? Your past needs healing from you. Your present needs ownership from you. And your future needs acceptance from you. Once you can heal the past, then that is when you can now say that your mess has become a message. Because a lot of people who say that their mess has become a message, really, the real truth is that their message, they're only trying to create a message out of their mess. Because their message has not really become, their mess has not become a message. And by the way, let me tell you this. I have personally experienced someone, a close relations, actually, she used to be my friend. She went from mess to having a message. The message became a mess. You know why? Because she did not want to deal with some aspects of that mess. And so when she thought that she had transformed that mess into a message, the mess came back to deal with that message. And so it's the reason why I always tell people you need to heal your present. You need to heal your past rather. And you need to take ownership of your present. And you need to accept the future. You know the reason why you need to accept the future? Because you can't predict what the future will hold. You can't completely dictate what the future will hold. In fact, for those who do cryptocurrency and forex trading, there's something called technical analysis, right? Technical analysis means that you can almost predict where the direction of the market is going to go. You know the funny thing? If the market does not go the way you want it to go, what will you do? Will you die? The best you can do at that point is to accept that the market has gone a different way than you predicted. And so what do? You rest. I hope somebody who is doing crypto is not here laughing at me right now. I see this guy. Oh Lord. So you rest so that you're not wrecked. I'm learning a lot. All right. So let's move forward. But before we move forward, I need to be sure here that you are getting something. Are you getting anything at all? Now, just before we move forward, let me share with you the story of Elizabeth Akunyili, who is popularly referred to as Eliza Express. She attended Fear Resolve. She's one of the people that attended Fear Resolve. And she said that Fear Resolve helped me understand why family has always been a stress in my mind. This is somebody that anytime relationship is leading towards family, that is raising a home, she is able to bail out, like run away. So she was able to finally understand why family has always been a stress in her mind. And she was able to identify why I developed a sudden phobia for family right after I found a loving relationship. And when the relationship ended, I was sad about it, but excited that I didn't have to take on family stress. This is one of the many clarifications I got. So, what fear itself is going to do for you is going to open you up to a lot of revelation, a lot of understanding, a lot of insights. Insights that will transform your life. Chikere says getting value. Dan you says, trader. All right. So I said we will move forward, right? Now, for this part, I'm going to breeze through this part very fast. There are 7 ways we acquired our fears, and I want you to write this down. Now, before we jump and move forward, I want you to go back to your workbook, and I want you to answer some of the questions in that workbook. What are some of your biggest and most obvious fears right now? What do you do behind closed doors that you can only do behind closed doors so that other people cannot, you cannot do it in front of other people because you are scared of what they would think? I want you to write that down. Is there something in your life that you really want to do? Or maybe a certain passion or a dream that you have that you've just been holding on to, but that dream is not coming to fruition simply because you are scared of what will happen? I want you to write that down. And I want you to start to process all of this right now. I know the reason why I'm saying you should process it, because it is in that processing that you get to find the answer to it. Again, I'm not going to tell you 25 steps to overcome fear. That's not the goal of this session. Because if I tell you 25 steps to overcome fear, you will be motivated to want to apply that step. But you know the funny thing, when the step does not work for you, you find yourself back in the same spot, not able to move forward, simply because the fear seems to have power over you. So I want to ask you a question right now, and I want you to answer this question right here. Are you afraid of losing people and friends if you follow your dreams? If you actually go after something that makes your life more rewarding, are you afraid of losing friends and family, losing people that you care about? Are you comfortable with being vulnerable? I once had a consultation call with someone, and it's a major problem. Not she, his major problem was that he was not being vulnerable with his girlfriend. His girlfriend, who was going to be his fiancée, he was even about to propose. But the lady kept complaining that even when you're feeling it, I don't even understand how you're feeling, because he's not able to be vulnerable with her. So does uncertainty and not knowing something ahead of time, does this scare you or make you feel uncomfortable? Are you afraid of what other people think of you? Are you afraid of what others will say about you? Are you currently in an unhappy, unhealthy, or dysfunctional relationship or marriage, and you're scared of getting out? I want you to answer these questions. I want you to answer these questions. As I answer these questions, I'm going to quickly share with you 7 ways that these fears came about. Number 1, traumatic experiences. I've already explained this earlier on, and I remember explaining to you that the amygdala in our brain gets affected because trauma impacts the amygdala, and it creates a fear center which affects our motivation and action. So for someone who's gone through trauma, there's a tendency for them to fear. It's even very, very high. Another way we acquire fear is overprotected childhood. And I'm going to slowly read this to you. When parents forbid their children from doing certain things because they're afraid something will happen to them, it creates a permanent scar of fear in the emotions of the child. You've probably been like that, or maybe you know someone who was like that. Their parents was constantly or were constantly trying to tell them, this is what to do. You should not do this. You should not do that. I remember one lady was in a class like this. It was even a free class. And she was able to finally understand that this is what she has been doing to her own child. Anytime a child climbs a chair, she's screaming at the child, come down, you will fall down, come down, you will fall down. The child has not fallen for once, but she's the one who kept imagining that the child is going to fall down. And so she's the one who's creating the fear in that child. The child did not experience the fear. She's the one who's transferring the fear to that child. Why? Because of overprotected childhood. She's trying to protect the child. Number 3 is conditioned fear. And when I say conditioned fear, this is the fears that originate in childhood when we erroneously connected an available stimulus to an unpleasant event. He slapped me. It means that he does not like me. Or he did me waka. It means he is cursing my mama. That is a conditioned fear. It needs to happen many times, like 2-3 times. And then we immediately believe that it's like that. So I have a client also. This client is not in a good relationship with the father. And the father is not the type that likes to change, because the father grew up also with this conditioned fear that you should never apologize to your child. And even though the father is wrong, the father is not apologizing to the child. And here is the child trying to say, I'm not going to do, I'm not going to do. And because it has happened several times, the child now believes that the father is wicked. As I mentioned here, I said, if you think back to your childhood, chances are good that within your earliest memory is an event colored by fear. Can you try to remember that? Food poisoning, maybe you fell down from bike. It could be anything. It says, I remember Shukura told me, yeah. And if you say yeah 2-3 times, you immediately link it to the fact that anytime anybody says yeah or even draws that waka, it means they're cursing you. It is conditioning. Number 4 is domestication. I've already talked about this. When domineering parents raise a child, pointing out several of the mistakes. In fact, I usually say this one this way, that a lot of parents correct their child, they never coach their child. Notice what I said. A lot of parents correct their child, they never coach their child, because they are constantly trying to domesticate that child, trying to make that child conform to what they want. So they tell the child what not to do, but they don't tell the child what to do. Another thing that creates fear for a lot of people is personality traits. So personality bends like the introverted melancholy or phlegmatic could be indecisive and fear prone. In the fear resolve process, we help you understand how to utilize your personality to be able to overcome fear. In fact, we call it your driving motivation, your driving desires. It's an assessment we run in class every single time we have class. So it helps people understand why they are introverted, and it helps them understand how they can utilize that introversion for their own advantage. So, for example, a sanguine can be fearful. The fear that a sanguine naturally have is the fear that people can betray him. That people, so you naturally hear a sanguine talk about relationship with people, in the sense that some people this, some people that. I know somebody who does that almost on a weekly basis. So he's constantly bashing people because it's coming from a place of fear. Because that's a sanguine for you. Now, a choleric will have the fear of control. They will not want to lose control. Remember, I mentioned control at the beginning of this session. So a choleric will have the fear of control. They will not want other people to control them. They want to always be in charge. A phlegmatic or melancholy also fear as well. Aversion to being alone is found with certain personalities and could be a fear of intimacy or opening up to vulnerability. And then there's social learning, what I call social learning. There's what I call social learning. And what does social learning mean? It means that you watch other people and then you absorb their fears. So the way I explain this is what I call absorbed trauma. Absorbed trauma is that it happened to somebody, or you watched it in a movie. It did not happen to you, but you quickly adopted it and began to believe that it's going to happen to you too. So, for example, NSAS happened last year. A lot of people were traumatized, but a lot of people absorbed the trauma. And so I was one of the people that was attending to people during NSAS, because I volunteered my contact and made it even available publicly online during NSAS protest, because a lot of people were being triggered, even by the October 28th incidents. It triggered a lot of people. But you know the interesting thing, you don't have to be physically present somewhere in order to absorb and learn their fear. You can watch a video. You can see a picture, maybe a picture of somebody that they were butchering, or maybe a picture of somebody who's burning in fire. That's all you need to see. And that was why many years ago, Mount Zion films used to paint such pictures for us. So a lot of us lived in fear of God that was detrimental to our faith in God. Hey, I just rhymed. Oh, man. So a lot of us lived in fear of God that was detrimental to our faith in God. And so we fed God that we had faith in Him. And the same thing happens almost on a daily basis. Our friends influence and transfer their false beliefs about life to us. And the result is that we develop the same fears they have developed. We learned the fear from other people. The same way I told you about my mom running to kill a snake. And then from that day, I began to fear snake. It's something that we do on a normal basis. In fact, it is even more toxic these days with the advent of technology. It makes toxicity and fear very available to you via your screen, via your most cherished device. So you can sit down in your house and practically be absorbing somebody's fear without even knowing that you're absorbing their fear. Until you now sleep, you now begin to have dreams about such fears. I have had clients who had to call me. There's even one right now that we are yet to even get to have our session. This person is basically triggered by the fact that she has seen it happen to several other persons, and now she is sleeping, and she now begins to dream that this is happening to this person, this is happening to this person, this is happening to me, and so she is fearful that it's going to happen to her too. So I'm going to remind you here: what are you consuming? What kind of content are you consuming? Are they content that will help you or content that will be detrimental to you? So everyone says, Dan, you says, thank you, sir. Thank you. But this social learning, does it apply to everyone? I mean, it applies to every single person. I think the social learning influence people's choices. That's true. Now, social learning is different from social conditioning. There's a concept I teach in a different program, Break the Frame, that's called social conditioning. Now, let me explain what social conditioning means. Social conditioning simply means that you don't want to be isolated from everybody. So you want to behave the way everybody is behaving in order to feel accepted by everybody. That's what we call social conditioning. So if everybody is eating rice, you don't want to behave differently from them by eating beans. Do you get it now? So that's social conditioning. Social learning in the context of fear is that you are learning other people's fears without it directly happening to you. You are not the first person, you are not the person it's happening to directly. You are just simply somebody who's absorbing that fear. Do you get it now? So I need you to understand that clearly before I move on. So if that's clear, please let me know. And then the seventh one is what I refer to as habituation. Now, habituation simply means that we make fear a habit. In the fear resolve process, we have something we call the fear habit that helps you to understand how fear has become a habit. We call it path to mastery. That is how you have made fear a habit and how you have mastered that habit over time. So let me read this to you. Habits only need repetition for them to be installed. You don't create an habit when you do it once. You don't create an habit when you do it twice. You don't create an habit when you do it 3 times. You create an habit when you have done it multiple times. And so it doesn't have to even be a physical habit. It can be a mental habit. It could be that a pattern of thinking. It could be a way of talking to yourself. It could be that you are constantly killing yourself with your own words. It can become an habit. An habit only needs repetition in order for them to get installed. And you know the interesting thing is that when you get exposed to unfriendly experiences, your brain stores them. And with repetition, it becomes habituated to those experiences, such that anytime you experience anything similar to that thing, it triggers the same emotional response of fear, anxiety, and phobia automatically. So, as new experiences go from our sensory organs to the brain, it is matched against previously stored patterns of activation. So, if the pattern is unknown, it will discard it. It will not see it as threat. But if it is associated with a previous threat, the brain will activate a set of responses that are designed to promote your survival, such as the fear of such as running away, such as fighting back in anger. And so you find that sometimes some people, the real reason why they are angry with other people is because over time, anger has become a way they respond to situations. So they shout at other people, they scream, they yell. And for some other people, without even any conversation, they just start fighting. And by the way, if you live in Lagos like I do, Lagos is a trigger. So it's going to trigger a lot of people. If you drive in Lagos on another level, maybe you're on a control level. Here's something I want you to understand this night. Your mental picture of yourself is the strongest force within you. But more importantly, I want you to understand that we never achieve beyond who we believe we are. We never achieve beyond who we believe we are. We never achieve beyond who we believe we are. Whatever it is you believe about yourself, your mental picture will keep that thing there. And I'm also saying this to myself, that I need to expand my mind. I need to expand my mind. I need to expand my mind. And maybe it's a way that I'm saying it to you too. You need to expand your mind. You need to expand your mind. Olabode Damilola, who was a participant at the Fair Resolve process. And by the way, if you want to register for the Fair Resolve process, you can go to dayosamuel.com/register. And you can just enter the form, and then we will reach out to you and let you know. Or you can even send me a message, or you can send a budget investor who's presently in this meeting. You can send him a message. So you can also, so Olabode Damilola, and he said that I had light bulbs during the part where I knew there is a scenario, pattern, states, and strategies to my fears. I felt if I could take control of this or own this process, then I have nothing to worry about. I can do almost everything if I truly set my mind to it. So you see, this doesn't have anything to do with perspire to perspire. So, Sylvester, please share your contact so that they can reach you. But more importantly, you can go to dayosamuel.com/register to reserve your own spot for the next Fear Resolve process. The next class is going to be happening by April 30th rather. And by the way, this next Fear Resolve is going to take place online. So you can basically be a participant right inside your house. So you don't need to physically be present. And this is due to COVID-19. I don't want anybody to feel exposed to any virus that will create fear for them, especially if you have been the person who's been afraid of COVID-19 all this while. Now, let me run this session up by explaining to you the two broad categories of fear. Now, the two broad categories of fear are basically, number one, memory-based. And so far, I've explained this to you, that there is a memory-based fear. We call them evidence-based. So you have evidence for it. So you have evidence. And then there's the future-based, which is basically, I want to write it as anticipation, but let me write it as imagination. Are you with me? Now, memory-based fear simply requires evidence in order for you to feel afraid all over again. What are some of the evidences that somebody can have for this? Number one, a photo, a video, a word that somebody said, a picture, or also a picture. There are plenty of things that can take you back. A smell, a sound, a thought, a feeling. All of these are based on memories. You've stored them in the past. You remember when I was explaining past you, right? Fear can come from all of those things. And there's the imagination, which is basically the same thing. Pictures, sounds, smells, thoughts, feelings. But they're basically fears that have to do with the future. Fear that have to do with the future. So there's the fear that you have in the past, and then there's the fear that you have in the future. And you know the interesting thing? These fears dictate how you feel per time, and they shape your reaction to things. Now, interestingly, I want to share somebody's testimonial here. And I love that the person is inside this class. Let me check again to be sure that this person is inside this class. Yes, I'm correct. She's inside this class. So this is a testimonial from Oluwatomisin Orlaleye. She said, I saw myself forgiving everyone in my past, and it was as if something heavy was taken off my shoulder. I never believed I was so beautiful because all the scars on me kept reminding me of the past, and I wish they could disappear. But after day two of the fear resolve process, I feel loved by myself. I could see love all around me. I don't know about you, and I don't know who you are, even though I know everybody in this meeting, almost everybody in this meeting right now. You might have had fears in certain areas of your life where the fear has colored how you see yourself. It has colored your self-image. Remember, I said earlier on that you never achieve beyond who you believe you are, right? You will never see if you don't change the mental picture of yourself that you have of yourself, you will continue to underperform. And one thing that I know that fear is of accept people do over time is to change that picture of how they see themselves. Is to change that picture of how they see themselves. So I'm here again this night explaining to you everything that I've shared with you about fear right now. And I want you to, at this point, if you have questions that you would like to ask me, please go ahead and ask. And by the way, if you join the fear resolve process, these are some of the things you get as bonus. So you get confidence unlocked as a bonus, which is a 97 days personalized confidence makeover program. You get it as a bonus for being a part of Fear Resolve. You also get my book, Limitless Courage and Confidence. You get the full audio book. You also get the full PDF, so you can choose your own way of consuming it. You get that as a bonus for joining Fear Resolve. So at this point, I want to take questions. We are 1 minute in. Now, at this point as well, I want us to quickly do something before I take questions. I'm going to be putting a poll on the screen, and I want you to answer these questions right here. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to put the poll on the screen right here. So please, sincerely answer these questions, all right? So please, let's go. We are just going to have about 2-3 minutes. As you answer, just be answering one after the other. There are about 8 questions in total. I want you to answer them one after the other, and I'm going to explain why you did that and what each of them means. So question 1 says, I like myself as a person. So please pick the one, I don't like myself somehow, or I like myself a lot. I am as good as everyone else. No, I'm not good. I'm not as good as everyone else. Maybe. Well, that's right. When I look at myself in the mirror, I like what I see. Not at all. Kinda. Hell yes. I don't feel like an overall failure. I do. Sometimes I don't. Number 5. What others say to me has no effect. And I wanted to be answering them one after the other. It sure does. That is what other people say to me has effect. Somehow it has effect. It does not have effect, not at all. Number 6. I have the skills and qualities to make myself a success. I don't believe I have. Maybe I have. I know this well. I like to take risks. Not at all. I don't like at all. Sometimes I like. I like a lot. I like to take risks a lot. I am not afraid to make mistakes. I am afraid. Sometimes I am. I am not at all. So please go ahead. I want all of us here to answer this. I want all of us to answer this. Please go ahead and answer. As at right now, there are only 7 people that have answered so far. So I want everybody to answer. I'm looking at the numbers of persons who are answering. So please go ahead and answer. Go ahead and answer. Go ahead and answer. This is going to point us in direction so that I can customize a lot of what we've taught here to you, so that you can understand it, so that it can become something that you can utilize. And if this has been helpful to you, particularly if you are finished answering, you can please go ahead and type in the session something you've learned this night that has been meaningful and helpful to you. Number 8 person has completed. So there are some other persons who are yet to complete. Number 9 has completed. I'm looking at it right here. And I can see the That's the song that's ringing in my mind. I don't know why that song is ringing in my mind. Maybe we need to pray, Sha. I don't know. And I can see. Let me turn on music voice. And I can see the light. Mm. Hey. Mhm. Sylvester, if you are here, please let me take a screenshot of this quiz. Told me simply, let me also take a screenshot. I want to see how it looks like on your devices. So that in case of next time, I can also use that to be sure of how it looks like. I'm also going to jump right in on my device and try to view it as well. And I can see the light. Yeah, please go ahead. Number 9, 9 persons are filled. We're now 3 minutes in. I intend this to just take only 4 minutes. So we have just 30 seconds left. I have 33 seconds left. Please, somebody go ahead. Okay, I can see how it looks like now. Amazing, 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 amazing. All right. Peter says, I've been able to identify some of the fears that has been affecting my mind and my decision. Amazing, 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 amazing. Let's take this up to 10 people. So 9 persons are filled with this. Let's take it up to 10 persons. Let's make it 10 persons so that we have an wholesome or a whole number. All right. So please, the 10th person, please feel so that we know that we can do this. If you have picked skip before, please try and take this poll right about now. Okay, so time up, 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 time up. All right, all right, all right. Good. So thankfully, this is anonymously done. So I'm going to, because it's anonymously done, I'm going to share the results from my own backend here. That's I'm just going to tell you. So I like myself as a person. 56% of us said that a lot, and 44 said somehow. That is, you like yourself as a person somehow. And then I'm as good as everyone else. 56% chose that's right. 44 chose maybe. When I look at myself in the mirror, I like what I see. 44% chose kinda. 56% chose hell yes. I don't feel like an overall. Let me see if I share the results. Are you able to see the result right now? Please, if you can see the result, please let me know that you can see the result. I want to be sure that you can see the result as well. So let me also view it on my device here. Okay, great. I can. Great. Great, I can. So when I look at myself in the mirror, I like what I see, 56%. I don't feel like an overall failure. 44% said I don't. 56% said sometimes I feel like an overall failure. What others say to me has no effect. 33% said it has an effect. 56% said somehow it does. And then 11% said not at all. Then number 6, I have the skills and qualities to make myself a success. 56% I know this well. And then 44 says maybe. I like to take risks. 11% says not at all. Sometimes 78%, that's a higher percentage. A lot of people say a lot, that is 11%. I am not afraid to make mistakes. 11% says I am afraid. 67% says sometimes I am. And then 22% says I am not at all afraid to make mistakes. Now, let me explain what this means to you. So I'm going to stop sharing the result right now. So I'm going to share the result. I'm going to explain what each of these means to you. Now, for the person who for those, so this is not per person, for those who chose for those who chose a lot, you have very good appreciation for things for yourself, and your relationship with fear tends to be very interesting. But for those who chose somehow, you probably might be the person who needs to be in the fear resolve process. So, for example, I like myself as a person. Number one, you said somehow. For those who said somehow, could it be that you are battling some self image, or maybe it's self? There's a way I like to explain it. I usually describe it as self image, self worth, and self esteem. I am as good as everyone else's self worth. So 44% said that maybe I'm as good as everyone else. Maybe you need to be in the fear resolve process. When I look at myself in the mirror, I like what I see. The higher percentage said yes, and then the lower percentage said kinda. If you don't like what you see in the mirror, you need to work on your self image, how you see yourself. In the fear resolve, there are exercises that we give to you. And the way the fear resolve process this time around is designed is to take 3 weekends. So we're going to have 3 weekends for each session. So we have week 1, week 2, and week 3. And it's going to be a lot of activities, a lot of tasks that you are going to be doing privately in your own house, that are going to be recording, and you are going to be monitoring, so that by the end of the 3 weeks you are able to completely overcome fear. All right. I don't feel like an overall failure. 56% says sometimes I feel like an overall failure. What others say to me has no effect. This one, 33% said that it sure does. So yeah, what other people say to you has effect. You need to work on your self-acceptance, I think. And then somehow, some people, 56% say somehow. This is a larger percentage. You need to work on how you interpret what others say to you. So the most important part you need to focus on in that area will be the script and the stories you tell yourself. And then I have the skills and qualities to make myself a success. 56% said I know this. The 4% maybe you need. These are some of the people who need to be in fair resolve process. I like to take risks. 78% says sometimes. Wow, that is huge, man. Fear can stop you from taking risk, actually. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. 67%. Wow, the highest also. So you see, some of us need fear resolve process. Some of you need fear resolve process. And I'm telling you that you need it because based on some of these assessments, these are things that you can take from, if you're at 76%, you can take it, at least with fear resolve, you can get it to 96%. At least I know that one. At least based on the assessments that we run for students and participants of our classes, that has been something that we've had to see over time. We've recorded such changes over time. So at this point, I want to ask questions. I want to take questions. So at this point, I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. So you can unmute yourself if you have questions that you want to ask me. And if you want to, you can also turn on your video if you want to say something. So at this point, you can go ahead and ask me questions. At this point as well, I also want to record the video of this class on my phone. So if you have questions that you would like for me to answer, please go ahead and ask your questions at this point so that I can answer them. I'll be glad to answer your questions. I'll be glad to answer your questions. I'll be glad to answer your questions. So please, who has a question for me to answer? No matter the question that has been bugging your mind, you are free to ask. And by the way, it is the person who asks question that gets answer. The person that does not ask question does not get answer. Am I correct? Yeah, I'll ask your questions. All right. You can unmute yourself if you want to ask questions, or you can raise your hand if you want to. So go ahead. And by the way, you might want to ask, okay, iPhone, please go ahead. You can unmute yourself. Hi.
Good evening, Mr. Samuel.
Good evening. Thank you.
My question is this, like, on a journey to this, it sounds like a flawless one, but then can't there be obstacles
Yes, I can hear you.
The journey to like fun. Okay, fine, there's a fear of when you try to resolve it, but what if actually you fall back to that trauma on the path to resolving?
Okay. Do you mind repeating that question so that I can get you clearly? It looks like your network was pulling you.
Okay. Okay, what I was saying is that if you have a fear, okay, you are trying to resolve the fear now, but then your fear is like, what if trying to resolve it or trying to face the fear, overcome the fear back to that same fear? It's a less process, the fear resolve process.
Okay. While I'm still not clear on the answer on the question you asked, do you mind? Can you type so that we can easily pick that? But I know you mentioned fear resolve process. You mentioned a fear that if let's say you have social fear and this, but I'm not able to get the middle because network seems to be breaking. All right. So do you mind? Can you please help us type that question so that I can easily and clearly answer that? Maybe that'll be fine. All right. Thank you very much for that. So please, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask any questions if you want to ask a question right now. So please go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. All right. Okay. So the person with I. Okay, Peter, go ahead, please.
Good evening, sir.
Good, sir.
I noticed something from what you've taught tonight. It's majorly concerning my work. I noticed that I have this VSB, validation seeking behavior, and I'm trying to link it to some of the fears I have around my work. So I don't know if so, is it possible to resolve this, or is there a fear you have to kind of? I know I noted it here that I have a fear of not being worthy or not good enough, fear of abandonment and separation, and absorb trauma, then the SVP. Those are the ones I can really point out to as some of the fears around my personal life and work. So is it possible to actually do away with this VSB um, at work?
All right. Thank you for that question. I'm going to increase my mic back because I brushed it down because of the sound coming from your side. All right. So I hope you can hear me again. I hope you can hear me. I hope my sound is louder now.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the question you're asking is it possible to overcome VSB, that is validation seeking behavior? Yes, there is no fear that cannot be overcome. Remember that I explained that in order to overcome any fear that you're having, the most important thing you need is to understand that fear. And I explained that every fear is made up of 5 elements. These are the 5 elements right here. A scenario that created the fear, the script, the stories, and then the states that the fear actually produces, and then the strategy you're using to execute that fear. So let's say that, and this is where I want you to understand this very well. Validation seeking behavior, which you mentioned, is that the way I explained it is that you are constantly seeking validation from other people, from someone outside of yourself. It's almost the same thing that a lot of people do, especially Christians. Uh, we behave in a way that our pastors will accept us. We behave in a way that our superiors will accept us. All right? What is going on is that you need to get to that point that you, and of course, validation seeking behavior, like I said, is stemming from fear. What you need to do is, first of all, you need to identify the scenarios that makes you behave that way. Once you identify the scenarios, you identify that, okay, in this case, in this situation, this is how I behave. Then you need to identify the script, the beliefs, the values, the memories you have, especially around such incidences. So let's say that I ask you right now that if you, because I have a little background of what you're explaining, since you said your workplace. So let's say that you are with someone, maybe let's say your principal. Anytime you're with your principal, you behave a certain way, such that the goal of that behavior is so that they can like you more, so that they can feel like this guy is doing a lot for us, right? Now, that's a scenario. What beliefs, values do you hold in such moments? Or what beliefs or values are you holding on to, or do you have that's making you to believe or to behave that way? Then the third is, in that instance, what stories are you telling yourself? Or what stories are you telling them? So, for example, external story would be for somebody who now begins to tell that principle that I appreciate you, sir. I thank you, sir. Now, a behavior, a strategy, which is a behavior, is that you're now beginning to put yourself in a physical posture that makes you feel subservient to that person. Because, of course, you are seeking validation from them. Do you understand? Now? So if you want to overcome that, you need to first of all understand how that circle runs, and then you can now begin to tweak the circle one after the other. So it's like a flow chart. You need to understand why this one leads to this, and why this leads to this, and why this leads to this, and why this leads to this. So in the fear resolve process, what we usually do is we use an assessment called, I think we call it pattern evaluation. We use it to identify patterns. So in such instances, it could be that you are saying certain things to yourself. In such instances, it could be that you cited certain things. In such situations, it could be that you heard certain things. It could be that you smelled. It could be that you felt a certain way. Do you get it now? What we do in the fear resolve process is we use assessments to identify. So we using different questions and using stimulation and gamification inside class. So we gamify it such that everybody brings different context. And then we use our assessments to pass through such that, imagine in classes, we have found that the reason why some people are averse to starting new relationships, why this particular person always goes back to old relationship, is because of the strategy, the patterns they've constantly run through. So that's where we get to identify such strategies. Do you understand? So if you want to overcome that, you need to tweak any of those steps, any of those 5 things. Whether you need to tweak the scenarios, of course, that means that you need to constantly put yourself in a different context, not in the previous context of you putting yourself. The script, you need to work on your beliefs, values. If it is the stories, you need to change the stories, either what you are saying to them or what you are saying to yourself. Then the states, how you feel in that particular moment, and then the strategy, what leads, or how exactly you are executing your own sequence at that time. Do you understand now? So sometimes I can't give a blanket answer to every person. I can't even give you a blanket answer because I'm a professional. I don't work with guesswork. I work with scientific, evidence-based materials, tools, diagnostic tools that help us to know exactly what's going on with you, and then each answer is customized to you. Just as with the assessment we did just now, I could have told you that you have self-esteem, you have this, because I don't know until we used something to figure that out. Do you understand now? Peter, I hope that answers your question. If it does, please, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, very well, sir. Thank you so very much, sir.
Good. I had to go to that length to explain to you so that other people else can also understand that because of my work, if I tell you that, so let me tell you classic thing that people do on social media. They hear one side of a story and they not even lampa, they download, they give that person like terabytes of advice. So somebody is going through stuff and this person just post it on social media, just like that. And then you hear, it's because I've sinned against God. It's because you. Let me give you a little context. One day, a colleague of mine by the name Dima Nwobi, one day she saw a post where somebody said that she had been having a headache for days now, and this headache has not gone. She doesn't know what to do. She has used drug and the has used medication, and the medication did not go. And people started suggesting different medications for that person under the comment. And suddenly people started, she was saying, you're stressing yourself. And she just came, and being a professional like myself, Dima just said, sorry for whatever it is you are going through, but I would like to know, aside from the medication you are taking, have you drank sufficient water? That is, even without taking any medication. Have you drank sufficient water? And when the message popped in, the person just looked at this water. So the person went to go and get water and drank water. After a few minutes, the headache left too. That's how the person came back and said, how do you know that that was my problem? And Dima just replied that, I did not know that that was your problem. I just asked you just to point your eyes to that direction. Perhaps that may be the thing that your body needs. That's why your body is making you feel a headache. And that simple gesture, just asking a question, unlike every other person who was just telling her, go and get this drug, ibuprofen, parabofen. So I don't do that. As a professional, I don't slam you with advice. I don't tell you this is what you need to go and do. Instead, I will explain why things are like that and help you figure out how to get that done. So my approach has been a concept I picked from the Bible, which is wisdom is in the heart of a man. A different man who has understanding helps that man to bring out that wisdom. I'm that man with understanding, and I have sufficient understanding to help you, that you have wisdom inside of you, bring that wisdom to the surface so that you can utilize the wisdom to create the result you're looking for. That is my role. I always tell people that I'm not a guru. My work is basically a guide. Is to guide you to identify that wisdom inside of you using tools, scientific tools that I've developed over the years. All right. And that's how we run the fear resolve process. We run it as a scientific process, such that, in fact, the reason why we call it the fear resolve process is because it's actually a process. It is not a motivational program. So iPhone, finally, it says Esther. Okay, you're the one that wrote Esther earlier on. It says, okay, is the fear resolve process supposed to be flawless process? I don't understand what that means. What if you fall back to that fear or traumatic situation in the process? Oh, I guess that's what you meant by that. What's the next step when what you fear occurs in the presence of overcoming the fear? Now, I love this third question. I'm going to start with that. What do you do when the fear you're trying to overcome occurs in the process? Now, the good thing about fear is that the moment you have light and awareness, it doesn't immediately chase away that fear. That's the illusion that motivation creates, that now I'm inspired. Now I can go and conquer my fear. Now I can become fearless. And so they now go, and then somehow the fear shows up again, and they now use determination and willpower to try to overcome that fear. Let me explain why that does not work. Your mind is layered in three. Your mind is layered in such a way, for example, Hebrews 4:12 explains to us that the word of God divides soul and spirit and thoughts and the marrows and bones, right? So he identifies that there is bone, there is marrow, even in the body, there's bone, there's marrow, there's body, right? But it also goes deeper to identify that there is thought, there is soul, there is mind, there is spirit, right? That mind has three layers. So a man can be very, very deep within him or herself. And by saying a man, I'm referring to man as a gender. A man as humanity, not necessarily man as a gender, not as man as sex, male or female. Now, that mind has three layers. The first layer is the part that is attending this class, the part that you are using to follow this class. That's the part that attention is focused, or that's the part that kind of has what we call attention span. That part is focused on learning, thinking. It can assimilate things, it can process things. That part of that mind is called conscious mind, and it can be overwhelmed. Now, there's a part that is below that, which is called subconscious. Subconscious goes a little deeper because it is below the conscious, and it does some other things. For example, it does things like storing, um, well, feelings and co. All right. And then there's the third layer, which is called the unconscious. This side is deeper than the sub. This unconscious, and this is something that we are going to talk about in the fear resolve process, because in the fear resolve process, we help you understand your mind and your body and the relationship between two of them, so that your mind gets you to feel, of course, when we talk about state, as I've been mentioning, state is in 4 layers as well. There's a brain state, there's body state, there's mind state, and there's, of course, there's a spirit state. Now, the mind, the subconscious, is the second layer, right? The unconscious is the third and the deepest layer. This unconscious is the part that a lot of times controls our unconscious responses to things. So when you are trying to overcome fear, in what, if you remember, I talked about mastery earlier on, that we always talk about the path to mastery. Now, when you're trying to master something, there are also 3 layers that you get to. There is the external layer, which is the physical layer. Then there's the second layer. I can't remember what we call it now, but there's a third layer, which is the emotional layer, right? That emotional layer is that part that we usually get to connect with your unconscious mind. So we do activities like, let me show you some of the activities that we do in class in order to get you to tap into your unconscious mind. Let me show you some of the such activities. Let me see if I can quickly get there. Let me show you some of, okay, good. So good. So we do activities like this type. So we do activities like this in class. So we do activities like this, which is the physical engagement, which is the physical mastery. Then we dive deep into an emotional unconscious mastery, which is where you now install things, even when your eyes are closed, when your mind is very, very alert, when your mind is very, very open. That's the reason why we do this. All right. So when you are trying to overcome certain fears, it is normal for your conscious mind, which has absorbed fears, to try to bring it back, It tries to scream at you and tell you that this thing is still there, this thing is still there, this thing is still there. But the interesting thing is that if you have solved it at an unconscious level, your conscious mind will still continue to present it to you. But the interesting thing is that your unconscious mind will eventually take it over. And at that point, it takes out that fear that you have. I hope that is clear. I went a lot of the way to explain that to you. Now you said, okay, is the fear resolve process supposed to be flawless process? By flawless process, I need to mention here that fear resolve is not flawless. Even inside fear resolve, I make mistakes. So it's not flawless. Fear resolve just works because it is a process. And the process is unique for each participant. So it's not like the same process works for everybody. So for example, some people come to class and what they are dealing with is addiction. They're dealing with addiction. And of course, if you remember, fear is at the base of addictions, right? So we undo the fear they have behind the addiction. And then they find out that, so let me give you a classic example. I know somebody who came to fear resolve process, and this person was addicted to pornography and masturbation. And I told the person, enroll for fear resolve. Let's see you in class. The person came to fear resolve. The first day, it looked like the person was just like, okay. Me, I said that it's addiction, that I'm battling pornography and masturbation. You are telling me fear. This is... But you know the funny thing, the person masturbates every single day. That night, the person got home and the person did not masturbate. He did not even know that he did not watch pornography, because he watches pornography in order to sleep. All right? He did not watch pornography that day. Why? Because a mind stretched to a new dimension, to a new idea, never returns to its original dimension. So he got to class, we stretched his mind inside class. He got home, he could not watch pornography. The next day he came to class, He felt like he was not doing anything until like 1 week later, I chatted him up and asked, how far? How is masturbation? Oh, that's true. Ah, since fairly stuff, I've actually not masturbated. I've not even watched pornography. I said, really? The day I was going to watch pornography, he actually started me and said that I feel like watching pornography. I said, go ahead. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. The thing is, because you have spent years and years of your life to master that behavior, your mind is helping you to deal with it by letting you go days without even remembering to do it. And so as you do it days without doing it, eventually it becomes months without doing it. And so again, I'm going to say fear resolve process. Even though it's a process, it is not flawless. It works differently for different people. All right. So I hope I've answered your question, Esther. Thank you for asking that question. Thank you for asking that question. At this point, I want to ask, is there anyone else who has a question that you want me to answer? And particularly, I would even like to hear from every single person. So I'm going to pick you at random, and I would like to hear how this session has been helpful to you. I would personally love to have every one of you inside the Fair Resolve process. Again, you can register for Fair Resolve process at dayosamuel.com/register. The person I'm about to pick just ran away. Isn't that very interesting? I just scrolled to the person's name. I was just about to call. I just said, let me make the announcement and finish that. So I would like for you to join Fair Resolve. If you have joined Fair Resolve process before and you would like to be in the next class, this one is going to happen online and it's going to happen 30th of April. We can please chat up Budget Sylvester. Sylvester, please drop your phone number so that everybody can chat you up so that they can send you a message. So that they can easily reach you that way. So please drop your number so that they can reach you. If you have done Fair Resolve process before and you would like to be a part of this online edition, you can chat Sylvester up, or if you don't, you can chat me up. But I may most likely not be with my phone, or I may be with my phone and be engaged with some other things. All right. So let me unmute the first person that I would like for him to say something. So let me unmute Adela Jai. So Adela Jai, please go ahead. Please share with us what has been enlightening, what has been insightful for you. How has this session, has it been meaningful to you? Has it been useful to you? So at this point, everybody, if you want to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself, all right? But I'm asking some certain persons to unmute themselves so that I can hear from them. Chikere, you can also go ahead. Dan, you can also go ahead while we're waiting for. I need to be okay. Since Sylvester typed number, it means that you guys can hear me because I wanted to be sure that you can hear me. All right. So, Dan, please, let's have you. So while we're waiting for. So, Dan, what has been your most important lesson in this session tonight? And the interesting thing is that I did not think of replay before. The recording just happened to have been automated, to have been automatic. That's why it was recording. I did not plan replay before. If not, I would have streamed to YouTube as a way to have the replay. So this must have been, I just got a message. Somebody else said that we would like to have your replay. The person was in the session at the beginning, but left. So Dan, let's have you. Juliet, please, can you unmute yourself and share with us what has been a light bulb moment, or what was a light bulb moment that you've had in this session this night? Okay, Dan, you are muted. Please go ahead.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay. I think the structure you talk about the scenario, the strategy, the beliefs, about several things or four that you talked about that could hold fear. That was very instructive for me. Very, very instructive for me. So while you were talking, I was thinking about that whole arrangement around my life and all the things that have happened over the years. I know that. Very, very instructive, I must say. And I want to thank you for this. I think a friend sent me the link and I have to thank her too. I have to thank her.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much for that. I'm glad that was helpful to you. In the fair resolve process, we go deep into each of those. In fact, we dedicate sufficient time to handle the scenarios, the script, the stories, the state, and the strategies so that we can understand. And we use assessment so that you understand exactly the things that have happened in your life. There's even a simple task that we usually do in class, which we call the probability of fear, where you identify a fear in your life and then you rate it such that you place it in a box. There are 4 boxes, it's a quadrant. You place it in that box. And every time we've done that, especially in non-fear resolve classes where I get to speak or I get to train, and we do that in class, people place their fear inside one of such boxes. They just look at it like this. So it's not that deep. And then they go and do that thing that they're afraid of. And they come back and tell me like, wait, what did you do? How did you do it? And you did not tell me motivation. I just blah. So I'm glad that you had that. Thank you very, very much. Madela Ajayi, I would like to hear from you. Juliet, I would like to hear from you as well. Abimbola, ETA. Okay, sorry if I say ETA. Maybe ETA or ETA. I don't know how it's pronounced, but ETA in my mind it sounds like estimated time of arrival. Don't mind me. Well, sorry if I am not pronouncing your name well. Please, you can unmute yourself and tell me your name so that I know exactly what your name is. Oh yeah, now. Juliet, please, do you mind unmute yourself? Share with us something you've learned tonight.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
I particularly enjoyed the session. I must say it was really mind opening. It was really so very resourceful. Although I was busy. I was quite busy trying to put things together at home and do would I say mother duties? I'm not a mother yet still, but so I was quite distracted. I was quite distracted, but I actually learned a whole lot from understanding that most of all the things that we go through, stress and all that, they could be um they're all pointers to fear. Like I was like, really, like all these things lead to fear. Like, are you seriously kidding me right now? So it was really so refreshing. Learning so much about fear. I mean, it felt like fear is just one word, and the whole concept of this fear, in fact, is really so big. And I was just having a conversation with a friend that got to call me as we were talking about this, and I was just trying to share most of the things that you said here, and I was like, I didn't even know that this thing is deeper, like it's it's deeper than just the face value, than just understanding that, oh, this is fear is a word, oh, we just run away from something, that there are actually lots of things that that could be pointers to our fear, like what we fear. And it's so I think it all kind of makes sense to me right now, because I was discussing with someone like some weeks back, and this person is also dealing with addiction, right? Just like your own addiction. And you said that you said that it's fear, and I'm like, whoa. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? And I was just like, oh my goodness, I really wish that this person was here. And it's funny that I actually just I was scrolling through WhatsApp, and I think I have to thank Chinaza. She's here as well. I saw it on her status, and I just joined. I just said, oh, I was busy, and I just said, oh, let me just join. I can be doing other things while listening in. And this was so powerful. It was so mind blowing. And thank you so very much. I really enjoyed the session. I totally enjoyed it. I learned a whole lot, where my fears come from and everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you very, very much. I appreciate you. Thank you for that. I'm glad that the little that we could drop was valuable and useful to you. I'm really, 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 really glad actually. So thank you very much for that feedback. If I go to sleep this night, at least I will sleep knowing that this was helpful to some persons. So thank you very, very much. Chikere, you can now unmute yourself. I have allowed everybody to unmute themselves. Sorry, I did not know that I was turning it off. I thought I was turning it on.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Dr. D.
Good evening, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Well, class, I've known Dr. D from, I think that should be 2013, right? Where we were actually, we
right.
met online. If you remember, Jenny Chisom, the likes of you, myself, and
Yes.
Dr. Malik. I remember on blogging.
Yes, I remember.
And that was how we met. And wow, I would say I attended basically as a friend, but I found out that I really have a lot to deal with. It has exposed a lot of things. I never knew fear could be rooted in addiction, and that is being controlling, and those other steps you mentioned. And wow, like what the last speaker was saying, I was also running up and down doing one or two things, but earphones to my ear, and I was just moving around, and it's mind blowing. Thank you. I look forward joining the Fear Resolve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to having as many of us that are here. Fear Resolve process. In fact, this is going to be the first time we're going to be having Fear Resolve as an online version after a long while. 2017, 2018, we had Fear Resolve as online, and then we stopped it from online. Then we moved it offline. And so 2018, 2019, 2020, we had it as physical events. COVID-19 last year, we had during March, in March, and then we could now hold again because we even had it when lockdown was about to start. So the moment lockdown started, we just halted it. And then bringing it back now, even though lockdown has been eased, we said, so that we can feel safe, so that everybody can feel safe. Because we have people from Makodi, we have people from Abuja, we've had, in fact, 2 persons from the last class were from Abuja. No, 3 persons were from Abuja. Lizzie, Richard Okere, and then a lady that runs ORS Fitness on Instagram. She was also in class. Then we have plenty of people from all around the country that has been coming to classes. So I'm glad that this was helpful. I look forward to having more persons in class. Let me see Abimbola, Adela Jai, Abimbola, Jeremiah. I would have said iPhone. That should be Esther, right? If anybody, you can unmute yourself so that you can share with us what you've learned so far as we begin to bring this session to an end. Again, you can just go to dayosamuel.com/register, and then you can lock in a spot. You can register to show your interest so that we know that at least we know that this person is in. All right. Adela, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
I'm doing fine. I like the way you're doing your voice.
This is the packaged voice. So, the people that are single on this call start sending direct DMs. Yeah. But yeah, this was actually a very interesting session. I think a few things I learned were the different kinds of confidence, right? Social self and
Skill.
skill. I think it sort of helps you portray things in like different spheres in your life. I always just thought like self-confidence for self-confidence. It didn't really matter, or I didn't realize I was broken down into different compartments. So that was helpful. Um, I think another thing I also learned was fear that makes you micromanage people. I think that's something I actually exhibit. Some of the people I work with, I tend to want to chook eyes into what they are doing. So I have this thing with that, people don't do what you expect, people do what you inspect. So I actually like go extra lengths to inspect people. I think it's from the fear of not believing that they will execute it. And sometimes I actually take away things that I shouldn't be doing. Just to ensure I get it done the way I want to get it done. So I think this just helped me realize that it's actually fear that is making me feel this way. And it's like you said, awareness changes everything. So now that I'm aware, well, one step closer. Um, the last thing that you said that was like a deal breaker for me, kind of annoying, was when you said motivation doesn't kill fear. That was actually very, that was a realization that was irritating. I didn't know use the word irritating, but I was like, hell no, come on, because like I have this thing where I said like know what turns you on. Um, like sometimes you feel demoralized, you're not in the mood to get to do the things that you want to do. So I have like a few things in my toolbox that I always know that gets me fired. I would go back there and try and do one of those things. Sometimes it's to watch a motivational video or a movie.
Videos.
Yeah, but even that sometimes doesn't help you get it done. So I learned that also when you don't do that, next thing is discipline. Um,
Sure.
but I think what you said, which is you're probably afraid of something, that's why you're not doing it. And once you are aware, you have to deal with that fear rather than look for other. So I've sort of been looking out for other ways, yeah, for like I said, motivation, discipline. But I've never actually just thought about it from a fierce perspective. So yeah, I
Wow.
think that was very helpful.
Wow. Wow. Thank you very much for that. I'm glad that was able to provide some insight. And with that, I think I can go to bed tonight and feel like I feel like the Prince of England. Not the one that died though, the one I still alive.
Would you call would you call this a validating seeking relationship?
Which of them?
Yeah, this because they are literally looking for validation from us by getting us
Oh,
to
me,
seek
right?
them. Yes.
Nah,
Okay.
sorry.
So this is not validation.
No, exactly. It's not validation. It's you basically seeking feedback. There's a
Yes,
difference
it's
between
basically feedback.
seeking
Yeah.
feedback and validation. Feedback
Indeed.
is okay, I want to know how it was so I can improve. Validation is I just basically want to know that you want me. I want to know that you value me. I want to know that you want to have me in your life. I want to know that you want to keep me. So that's the difference. Validation and feedback are two way different things. So he's not seeking validation. He's seeking feedback, and that's important for his business. Sorry,
Brilliant. The speed at
sorry
which you
that I
use
just had to.
Hallelujah.
Sorry that I just had to jump in. I'm
yeah, the
sorry, sir,
speed
Mr.
at
Dayo, that I just had to jump in. I just could not stand that.
Thank
okay.
you. Thank you
I
for that.
just yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for asking that. And that may also help Peter as well. You are that's about validation seeking behavior. Sure, because sometimes you need to ask, how did I do? just to be able to access what you have actually done. All right. So thank you for asking that. Thank you for asking that. Jeremiah J says, permit me to express on written words. The worksheet is quite helpful. It helped me realize that I have some fears I wasn't really aware of. Oh, glory to God. Dan you says feedback, feedback, feedback. Amazing. All right. Thank you, everyone. We're going to have another webinar that will most likely be in some. The announcement for that is going to reach you via email. So there's going to be a second webinar. So thank you very much for being in this webinar. I totally appreciate you. Thank you for investing your time, your data, and maybe some people, they invested their belly by not eating. And some people, they were in the kitchen. Thank you, everyone. I totally appreciate you. This is going to be the end of tonight's session. We will see again in the next session. The details is going to reach you via email. That is if you're registered. All right. Thank you, everyone. You can unmute yourself and say a little goodbye. In the presentation, the aha moment for me is the validation seeking behavior part. The various dimensions of fear was enlightenment. Thank you, sir. Good night. Thank you too. Thank you too. Thank you too.
Right,
Have
thank
yourself
you.
an
Good night.
amazing night, an amazing life, and an amazing week ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
Thank you,
Dr.
sir.
B,
Good
have a
night.
good night.
Thank you. Good night.